Hello and welcome to another Critical Role Campaign 4 reaction video. We're going to be talking about episode 4. Now, to start off, we had some crazy cliffhanger from episode 3. I just need to start about talking about this forgetting combat in episode 4 here. So, I had thought that they might do this as a narrative thing as opposed to rolling initiative and doing this combat encounter, mostly because the vibes from episode 3 were that it was a narrative beat. Like, this is something that is not preventable, this big attack on this other house. Like, the characters are not going to be able to affect the outcome. But that being said, we still had this initiative rolled. We had some good dramatic moments. I really liked Julian. Julian, who kind of challenged this Primus, even though this Primus obviously is way overpowered for the party. But we still got this like really cool natural 20, and Brennan was cool about honoring that and making it like a not a hunter's mark, but a kind of ongoing buff for the future encounter. I think that really is like a cool idea for this kind of thing. Like, obviously, these level 3 characters are not going to be able to beat this powerful spellcaster casting like Plane Shift and Circle of Death and stuff. But you could still have these narrative beats and set it up for later. Now, on the flip side, we had this Octus death, very scripted death. And I'm going to get into a little bit of like kind of meta talk here because I watched the episode and then I watched the cooldown episode after it, which is on Beacon, and that really talked about a lot of the kind of behind the scenes stuff about this scene or about this idea of the encounter, which was that, Alexander Ward wanted to play a Hollow One character, and Brennan was like, "Oh, but what if we kind of did this narratively and had you come in as a human so that we can do this dramatic shift?" Now, that's all cool. I really like that. The thing that rubbed me the wrong way about the episode was there was a lot of posturing, it felt like. There was a lot of like, yes, Brennan and Alexander Ward knew that this was like a scripted moment, but it didn't seem like it was hard to tell if Valus and Taisha knew about like this meta thing, or I should say, Bria and Ashley. So we had this kind of conflict of like these big reactions from Bria, big reactions from Ashley, who were going, "Oh my god, a player death! This is so metal! This is so cool!" But behind the scenes, it was like super telegraphed, or at least planned by the DM and Alexander Ward. So it kind of, and you kind of felt that because obviously Alexander Ward was not reacting that harshly. They were kind of, I guess you could mistake it as shock, but they weren't like really fighting for their life. They weren't bargaining or anything like that. They were just kind of stone faced. A lot of the death scene. Now they it could have gone differently. I think the main thing that could have gone differently is if Octus had like won out an initiative and jumped out a window, and then maybe there would be some different narrative planning stuff. So in that way, it wasn't scripted. Like, it wasn't, Octus was not locked in to die necessarily, but the odds are very much stacked in favor of Octus dying. And I had I had thought that this was going to be completely narrated because of the cliffhanger from episode 3. We had these ghouls, we had the silent spell, we had this ambush, and I thought it was just going to be a narrative scene, and bam, character change, hollow and setup. But instead we got this kind of initiative scuffle, and it kind of worked out. There's more to talk about this, like kind of DM influence on the DM influence on the character, or like the story. I want to talk about that more, but I think it kind of affects events later in the episode, so I kind of want to continue talking about this combat. Otherwise, the combat was pretty cool. I really liked Julian's like combat ability, really utilizing the new rule set with the sap and the vex and the advantage sneak attack was really cool. You can tell that Matthew Mercer's build is really going to come online when he has extra attack, and it was really cool to see Brennan kind of acknowledge that and give him haste for a lot of the combat, so you can get these crazy like high performative rounds from Matthew Mercer, and it was really cool to see. On the flip side, we had Ashley, who was, I guess, rolling poorly. It's rough when you're a paladin and you have no AoE, and it's like, oh, my character is really cool and really effective against undead, and is a paladin against undead. But wait, I don't actually have anything that can deal with a group of undead surrounding me. I think it would have been cool if there was like a dodge action. Like at some point, Ashley was tanking like 4 or 5 shadows, and I thought, oh, you should probably be dodging, because that would narratively fit with what is happening, and that you're trying to kind of tank aggro with all these shadows, right? That was a cool moment, and I don't know how low her HP got, but you felt like near the end of the combat, like Matthew Mercer was semi like trying to go, oh wait, I should go help Valus, even though our characters don't really know each other too much. I'm gonna try and narratively make it make sense for my character to help, because I think Valus was in a little bit dire straits with a couple more rounds of combat. It could have been kind of bad. And then we got this like little bit. There was like a moment where Julian ran up and was like, "Run, Valus, run! I can hold him off." Obviously, I think Matthew Mercer wanted to like run up and kind of take aggro, or like take kind of give a narrative reason for Valus to leave, and then like dash after her. But then there was like a little bit of a mix, like, oh, Ashley didn't understand that, so Ashley was like, oh, we gotta hold our ground here or something. And then it was like a kind of a buddy standoff, and it actually worked, because really the shadows were not a big threat. They just needed to get attacked by more than one attack a turn, right? So we got this kind of cool moment with Valus and Julian, which I think it ended up being a cool kind of combat moment, even though it felt like a little bit confused while watching the episode, because I did not feel like the player communication was clear. And that's really easy to say as an outside observer, of course. That's just the privilege of being a fly on the wall. You're not really in the combat. But it was just an interesting observation. So yeah, we had this combat. Thasia was kind of, there was like also mostly narrative stuff. Like the biggest thing was that she was trying to do this role playing moments with Octus, and it didn't really feel like there was much combat effectiveness. But whatever, there was like a weird use. I didn't even know you could use speak with plants to make difficult terrain. That was like a weird usage. I didn't even know you can do that. And also the idea that you can make metal difficult terrain might be useful later. That really expands the use of speaking with plants, if you're including metal and ore and alloy and stuff like that. So that's something to keep a lookout. It'll be really cool if, late game would be awesome if Tharjo's like, oh, I am like a wolf with like some metal enhancements and stuff. Like, I don't know, that'd be cool. And maybe it's a custom subclass. I don't think Abria's subclass is confirmed yet. We had some subclass confirmations. I know particularly Murray's subclass got confirmed. I don't know if anyone else's really got confirmed yet. I still think it's too early to know the fighter subclass for Julian and Bayless. I don't think did anything specific to a subclass. So still the jury is out for the subclasses of these characters. So I think that is pretty much all the highlights from the combat. Otherwise it was really cool narrative. We had Octus's brother come in and rip his heart out, and we had this Primus with this master plan setting up this necromancy dominant faction that is utilizing these souls of the dead. I really like the description of the souls of the dead being like a appendix about to burst and spill out into the world. It was cool like that, stuff like that. We also had some kind of counter thematics with the House Royce and the fairies and stuff. Although I don't think the description was as like I think near the end of the episode they were in a Royce, or were they in a Loy place or a Royce place? I think maybe it was a Loy place. Yeah, it was a Loy place. Never mind. Nix that. Excuse me, I'm wrong. Never mind. But we still had this kind of. There was not as much Fey magic going on. There was like some kind of fairy talking with the sapling to tree stride. That was cool, but not as potent as like this undead dimension bursting through. Yeah, briefly, I also want to talk about the other character who got a lot of time this episode, which is Bolaire. I really liked the opening scene with Bolaire. Was pretty cool. You could really feel that Taliesin was trying to really deliver like the coolest thing in his head. Like he tried to really nail the delivery of these suave actions from this masked man kind of thing. And that was like a cool open with Bolaire. I'm actually starting to really like Bolaire more so than I did with Ashton from Campaign 3. I really like the high int Taliesin characters I don't actually know how much int Ashton had, but kind of more connected to the lore as opposed to a punk. But that's just a character preference thing. But I really like how Bolaire's shaping up. I like this sentient mask idea. I still don't know what the implication of the Warlock Patron is. He his own Warlock Patron, or is he still connected to something else? Like the idea that these masks were made to do a play that killed the trickster god. So I imagine it's like you get the trickster god to participate in the play, and then you murder him in the context of the play, which also kills him, or something like that. But what does Bolaire draw his power from? It's kind of unclear. I think there was some stuff like, oh yeah, Bolaire might be a hexblade or something, because he was kind of making these tools or making different weapons and accessories with this pact weapon maybe. And I think that's a feature that hexblade can do now is change weapons, but I'm not completely sure. I'll have to check the wikis for that one. But yeah, still unclear what his source of power is, which I'm interested in. Maybe it's just him and he just is a self-powering mask, or maybe it's something more interesting. Besides that, we kind of got a more consolidated adventuring group with Azune and Hal and Murray kind of teaming up and going with Bolaire to the Loy Wing, to the archive, and having this big scene there. At the Hal household, we got the confirmation that Murray is a divination wizard in the most heavy-handed way. It was kind of it peeved me that Brennan was like, oh, hey, oh hey, Marisha, you should use your divination tonight, wink wink, or it's gonna go away, wink wink. It was kind of like, oh, you're setting up for your own narrative moment later in the episode, where we got the gang kind of going to the other group, and oh, egads, we have this level of DC 30 medicine check. I sure hope you don't fail it. Oh, you got a you had a natural 20 and you're important. Bam, awesome roleplay moment. Boom. It was cool. I'm not gonna lie, it was a cool narrative moment, and I don't think it was bad in that sense. But from a gameplay perspective, it definitely felt like Brennan knew or like really wanted to push this moment for Murray and push this moment for Octus being revived as a hollow one. So he really pushed, like, or really heavily suggested that like Murray should be looking out to use this portent. And I'm not trying to ascribe like good or bad things about that. I think there's been moments in past like Dimension 20 shows where it's a little bit more heavy-handed, where Brennan will like force a narrative outcome. But for this moment, because specifically it's the overture, and because specifically they wanted Octus's character to get to this Hollow One status, I think it was a little bit okay to fudge things, but it is really something that I'm going to keep an eye on going forward because I really like the player freedom. I want Critical Role to be a narrative that is affected by the dice and affected by player decisions, not affected by Brendan thinking a moment will be cool and then going, yes, so here, do this check. It's a DC 20, but take advantage and take a +5 situation bonus, or take this all these bonuses that make it really statistically probable it will happen. That is the kind of thing where it's cooler when the players figure that out. It's cooler when the players are like, oh, I'm going to add my Bardic, and I'm going to add my help action, I'm going to add my guidance, I'm going to boom, because I'm going to help each other out. Not the DM going, oh, so take advantage. You have this portent you should use, kind of thing. That's a moment for the DM to kind of fade into the background as a steward of the players, a steward of a shared narrative experience. Now, you might construe this as criticism. I still think, Brennan is a great DM, and these are some really good players. But it's just something I'm wary about, and I think it's one of the weaknesses of Brennan in some of his other campaigns. So something to look out for. I'm still looking for Hal to do some more stuff. Hal did do like this bardic stuff and did kind of help out, but he is like one of the players from this overture who really didn't get their own moment to do stuff. Like at least Tharja got this combat with a lot of narrative beats and a lot of chances, opportunities to do stuff, but Hal has kind of just been sitting in being a narration hell. Like he's got to narrate this funeral, he's got to narrate being the toast, and he's got to be like a family man. But now I think the idea is that the groups have been pretty much formed, and he will be part of like this home defender team. I don't know whether to call them seekers or schemers, but it seems to me that obviously one group is going to be more tied to kind of the local town, and to me that means Belair, Hal, Murray, and Azune, and then split up with Julian, Tharja, Thasia, and Valus and Octus being a group that are more concerned with this Nightstone, because now it ties into House Royce, and now it ties into this Sundered House that is a shared goal for these characters. A couple other things about the episode. I did like the characterization of Thiazi being a more morally gray character with Belair, and the kind of bribery to force Belair to help Thiazi. I like that there's a lot of threads of, oh, what is Thiazi what was the plans with the Nightstone? What was the plans with all this magical stuff that he was collecting? Like, what schemes is he involved in? Is it just stuff against the Taconis house, or is it something more? I like that there is kind of this war in the background, I suppose, or this undead dimension conflict. It seems to be pretty central to Taconis and perhaps the rest of the group. I do have some theories about like the implications of Octus's kind of narrative through line, which is so the Octus's brother specifically took his heart and put the stone of Night Song in him, or maybe the idea is that the stone of Night Song was kind of dimensionally with his soul and not his body. Like the implications of what the medicine check actually did were a bit confusing because was it the Night Stone was just lodged in his chest and they needed to medically extract that? That's what I would think for a medicine check. But if it was something, I'm a little bit confused narratively why it would be lodged in his chest and just left there. Because why? Like the brother did not like just left the body there with the night stone. That doesn't make sense. It could be it was kind of a medicine slash arcana check, but more medicine, in that they were moving it from his incorporeal body, and that the Nightstone had been conjoined with his kind of spirit and not his body. So the Nightstone was not physically there to be stolen, and that this big DC medicine check made it manifest, that kind of thing. I think the setting up. So the Nightstone was established to be this part of this celestial who got shepherded souls through the realm of death for the goddess of life. I think probably the idea is that Octus is this celestial, except it is the body of this celestial and not the spirit, because I believe the idea of like the Hollow One race is like you're a body with a will, but not your soul. Your soul is gone. So you're like an undead, but with only like the reflection of the will left in you. And I think that would fit if somehow the heart contained the soul of the celestial, and this like the Song of Nightstone was connected to the body in some way, and that would like connect to like House Taconis tried to co-opt the power of this celestial with this and raise it as a son and like bring it into the fold, but it didn't work because the celestial kind of was Octus and left the household, and now they're reclaiming kind of the celestial is a big loose end, which would explain why they're showing up in force and reclaiming Octus. But that's all remains to be seen. It's still very unclear, like kind of the exact state of this undead underworld dimension. There was a lot of mention of descriptions of Octus's soul floating through this liminal space, and it was confusing. I didn't understand what was happening, and rather than speculate, I'll just wait for the narrative to explain more, and that'll be that. So, unfortunately, there's not going to be an episode next week. I really was hoping that we were going to do a consistent one episode a week schedule in addition to whatever one shots Critical Role has cooking up, because with all these split tables, I want to check in with these tables more often. I don't want to have to spend like a week or 2 weeks break in between episodes just to get to another table. Like imagine you watch an episode of the Soldier Table, then there's a 2 week break, you watch an episode of the Schemer Table, and then you watch a Seeker's Table, and then it's going to be like an entire month between the Soldier episodes, and that seems really kind of like it's going to be hard to remain invested in a narrative with that much of a time gap. I don't know exactly what their plans are, so we'll have to see. Maybe they'll air like in arcs, like maybe it'll be a couple Soldier episodes and they'll get to a resting place and then a couple Seeker episodes or something like that. I think that would work a little bit better. I just don't want to be left on a cliffhanger for a month. That is the worst case scenario. But overall, I think this was a really good ending overture episode. I think it brought all the characters to a place where it brought all the characters to their correct place to start an adventuring journey. We'll have to see how things shake up. I'm pretty sure the tables are set, but it's not completely confirmed. We're gonna have this conjoined Seeker and Schemo table, and who knows if they're gonna have a shared combat or just meet up at the beginning of the episode and leave again. But for now, I think the future looks good. I think this is still a really strong start to the campaign 4, and I'm excited to watch more episodes. I'm really excited. It's already been a week, 2 weeks since, it's going to be 3 weeks since we see the soldier table again. I really like those characters, so I'm excited to see the next soldier episode. But thanks again for listening. I hope people don't think I'm too negative. I still enjoyed the episode. It's still a tall order to watch these 4-hour episodes, so you have to like what you're watching to watch it. But I did have some criticisms for kind of the way that things were handled this episode. And also, I think I'll get a little bit bonus. I'll get into it that I think also there was some. It felt disingenuous about people reacting to the Octus death, especially post episode in this cooldown posted on Beacon, that they were all like, "Oh wow, what an awesome emergent narrative moment that we all shared." And at the very least, the main beats of it were planned by Brennan and Alexander Ward. It wasn't a super emergent thing. Yes, it might have gone a different way, but the odds were stacked in it going this main way. I think it would have been more actually surprising if Octus survived this combat. Then that would actually be something that's breaking the intention of the DM and the player and brought us onto an emergent narrative moment. But for now, a little bit, they all have a shared motive to promote the campaign, and they were all like, "Oh, this was such an awesome narrative moment. Good job, everybody." And I'm sure they actually felt that. I'm not saying they're being completely disingenuous, but this is why they get the criticism that they're scripted a lot, is because they have these shared semi-planned moments sometimes, and I think this was an explicit one. And they don't act. They have a. I think that's natural for any D&D campaign. That's a normal thing to do. But I think the reason it crosses a little bit of a line is that they are very intent on promoting it as something that completely emerged from the gameplay, as opposed to something that was like, "Oh hey, I want to play a Hollow One," and Brennan's like, "Oh hey, I'll do this cool narrative moment for you, and you will become a Hollow One." That is a planned moment. It's not scripted, but it is a planned moment. Anyway, on that bittersweet note, I'll talk to you later. I'm excited for next week, and goodbye.